Hello to whoever might be out there listening. I kind of wanted to talk about acceptance. I was having this thought before bed last night, and it's not super fleshed out yet, so I'll probably flesh it out as I'm talking. um, but I had this concept that I was contemplating before bed last night, and it's that acceptance. I guess I really had always seen it as like this action that I could take, this like one thing that I could do to accept something, and it's like magically supposed to make life easier for me, right? Because there's a lot of self-help talk out there about like accepting yourself, accepting the present, accepting the future, all this stuff, and it's like I think for me that concept was pretty intangible because I didn't really understand. And the more I have come to figure out what acceptance looks like for me, the more I would describe it as like a process, not just like this one-off action that happens. And so the process of acceptance, I believe, becomes more manageable of a conceptual understanding. Maybe everyone else already gets this, but if you're like me, you know, here is kind of what I've come to. So I have a video on YouTube that is about validation. And so what that means in like an emotional context is understanding and acknowledging that right here, right now, this is what's happening, and no one's arguing about what is happening. We're not talking about if we like it, if we don't like it. It's just acknowledgement, right? Validation. That yes, this is real, right? And so I do believe that validation is the first step in acceptance, right? So validating that something is real is the first step in accepting it, okay? From there, we go on to, after we, have validated this is real, now it's time for us to kind of just feel in the moment what those emotions are that come with that reality, right? And you don't have to put words to it yet. I think just like feeling it. And I know that I'm not really going to have probably a good way to describe how to feel something, but I think something that has helped me, someone who was very emotionally unintelligent, very out of touch with my emotions, sometimes if there's an emotion that I'm having trouble feeling, sometimes I just need to be alone, maybe like my bedroom or a bathroom even, and I sit there and I close my eyes and I experience what it is that I'm trying to feel, if that makes sense. Whatever situation it has created these feelings that I feel like I'm avoiding, right? I sit there and I go through every part of the situation again in my head. And I'm not worried about being perceived by anyone. So all I have to struggle with is my own self-perception, right? And when I want myself to feel something, I have to let go of what I think I'm supposed to be looking like or doing or feeling or saying. You can't be holding on to these preconceived notions of how you should be experiencing it, because that holds you back from experiencing it, right? And at least for me, that has been a huge weight off my shoulders, being able to learn to, as my one therapist called it, not shitting yourself. Which I think is hilarious, because to me it sounds like not shitting yourself, which you shouldn't do that either. But don't should yourself, because it doesn't really do anything productive. All it does is negate what is real and gets you stuck in fantasy land where that's not happening. So it's like, why are we spending mental energy reacting to something that isn't happening, right? Because there are infinite things that are not happening right now, and if we try to react to all of them, well, we won't ever have time in life to react to what is happening. So validation, feeling it, just really feeling it. And then after we feel these emotions, right, for me, then what I need to do is process them with logic and reasoning, right? And I'm still alone when I do this too, and I like to do this all together. I know it's going to sound like a lot, but it really doesn't take that long. Thoughts are less than half a nanosecond, right? So you can have this whole process as quick as your brain is going to go through it, right? So where was I? After validation, feeling it, then we got to process it with our logic and reasoning and all of that, the frontal lobe stuff, right? So for me, cognitive behavioral therapy has been really productive, and I may not do a great job of explaining this part because this is the part I'm still learning, to be perfectly honest. But one particular like specific method that I found really helpful, if you like math and stuff like that, you might like it too. Make a pie chart. We are going to challenge thoughts with that. And I know it sounds silly, and I'm going to be real honest. The first time I did this with my therapist, I got like upset. I was like frustrated. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And she was like, why? Because you realize that this thought isn't true now? And I was like, yeah. So it can be really mind-bending, even if you're having these thoughts that are negative towards yourself. To really accept that they're not true is still shifting your map of reality and still an uncertainty, even if it's a better potential outcome than the one you have now, right? And so it's unnerving. It's uncomfortable. I was in discomfort, but after it was all done, there was so much relief, and I have used this technique so often, and it helps me. And so you take a thought, a negative thought, right? You logic it, the negative feeling, right? So maybe it's, I feel jealous of someone who is more successful than me or something, right? Now, we validated it. We said it existed. We haven't said if it's good or bad, right? We felt it. We felt that jealousy, like deep in us. Maybe it made our face hot, or our heart beat fast, or maybe it made our palms sweaty or something. Really, like, felt the visceral reaction of it, right? Now it's time to process it. So if the thought is, I am jealous of someone that is more successful than me. Okay, well, let's look at, are they really more successful than you? What do we define success as, truly, right? So let's make the pie chart. This person is much more successful than me. So let's look at their family life, their personal, interpersonal life, their intrapersonal life. And let's see, maybe they're just financially better off than you, but, you know, are they in scandals? Is this like a celebrity that's, you know, in all the at Diddy parties or something? You know, like, what are we really calling success? You know, what percentage more successful are they than you? And I think really taking the time, and I'm glossing over it because this is the part that frustrates me, and I also don't struggle with this emotion, so I'm not sure what I'd put for the percentage parts, but basically, like, so you would say, this person is more successful than me. Well, how much of success is determined by my family, right? So maybe you have a good relationship with your family. Well, I think that's a pretty big portion of success, maybe 20%, right? Like, what is success in life? You get to decide that too. And I think even just examining that, and maybe you did have this preconceived subconscious notion that success was only financial, right? And maybe you'll start to see, like, how rich you are in other ways. You know, maybe you read a book every week or something. That's, you know, success, I think, in a way. Maybe you create art that speaks to people, or music, you know, like, there's success even if you're not a millionaire, you know? And so cognitive behavioral therapy, using these like pie charts to really put numbers to it and say, okay, what part of this is actually true? And we end up finding out that it's not true. And it's frustrating. And I definitely suggest doing it with someone else that's going to hold you accountable, because I didn't want to hold myself accountable the first few times, right? So yeah. So after we validate, accept that, well, okay, this is the process of acceptance, right? So first step is validate that something is real. We feel it. We feel all the emotions tied to it. And now we're going to process, right? What happens then, like, is that we deconstruct the emotions. We find out where they're coming from, right? This is where self-awareness and self-analysis really come into play. And we build this by looking at our own patterns in life. So something that I feel doesn't lie, can't lie, is the frequency of things. How often it happens. We can chart our own life in a way by the frequency of these different events in our lives, and see where the patterns are. And some people are better at that than others. I'm sure there are plenty of people a lot better than, you know, there's therapists out there that see my patterns better than I do. But processing it and just decoding it, and when we start to make logical sense of emotions after we've already felt them, well, it leaves us feeling resolved. Not just that the emotions passed, but that we have now an understanding of why this is occurring in us. And then comes where we judge, right? And this is, I think, where a lot of people get stuck in being unable to accept. At least I was. This is where we judge whether we think it's good or bad, whether we want to continue or discontinue, right? And so let's go with that example thought I had. We validate I'm jealous of someone who's more successful than me, but maybe they're not really as successful as I thought they were. Maybe success is different, and maybe I am more successful than I once believed I was. And so now we can make a judgment of how we're going to react to the situation of this experience, right? Are we going to look at it and wish it didn't happen? Because the final step in acceptance is letting go of the need to wish for the situation to have been any different, because we are now content with how everything played out, because we understand it and we see the validity of it, and we know that we would not be here now if we had not had all the information from whatever may have seemed like a negative situation, right? And so this too, I think the final stage in acceptance is gratitude. And I know that is so hard when you are put through traumatic situations. And it doesn't mean being grateful for abuse. That's not what I'm saying. But rather gratitude for the process of overcoming it. Because we now have skills that we didn't have, and sure, we probably could have learned them in an easier, nicer way. But we also didn't choose which way we were taught these things. We only choose how much we learn from it. And so I think becoming grateful for being able to learn as much as you can from things that hurt you or try to break you. I think there's a lot of beauty in that pain. And yeah, I don't know. That's been my way of trying to cope with life as someone who is, I think, pretty realistic, but also pretty depressed to like borderline pessimistic. But you know, when we can find gratitude for the journey, that is, I think, the final stage of acceptance, which I am there in some aspects of my life, and other spots I am not there yet, and it's okay too, because it's a really long journey, I think, for a lot of people, but that just means there's plenty of time to learn side quests and stuff, you know. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about what acceptance is, and if anyone else was like struggling with thinking of acceptance as like this one thing that they were supposed to be capable of that they just couldn't get a grasp on, I hope that explaining it as a process in the way I see it, or have been learning to see it, could be helpful. And also too, I just want to remind anyone listening to this, take everything I say with a grain of salt. I am nothing and no one. I don't know shit. I literally wrote a song about how I know nothing. So yeah, that's the truth of it. So take what I say with a grain of salt. If it resonates with you, cool. But if you're not vibing with what I'm saying, you don't have to listen to me, and you probably shouldn't, because your path is going to be different. So I wish you well on your journey, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Bye.